Today we're going to talk about the discriminant. Now, this is where you have b squared minus 4ac, and where this discriminant is coming, it's a very small part of your quadratic equation, and let me introduce that one to you. Your quadratic equation helps you find the solution. So this is where you have x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So again, your discriminant is that small part of the quadratic formula. And I'm going to tell you that your equation must be written in standard form, where you have ax squared plus bx plus c. And one more thing, it must equal 0. Now, why is the discriminant useful? It is useful because it helps you to determine the number and the types of solutions. And we're talking about x-intercepts, roots, and zeros. Now again, your equation must be in standard form, where it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. You may also see it as yx squared plus bx plus c. It could be written in any of these two forms. Now, there are 3 cases. Our first case, if your discriminant is greater than 0, so it ends up being a positive number, you have 2 solutions. How will your graph look? That means that your parabola will have 2 x-intercepts. Now, if your discriminant ends up being if it equals to 0, then that means that there's only one solution. How does the graph look? That means that your parabola only has 1 x-intercept. Now, if your discriminant, this is actually the last case, if your discriminant ends up being less than 0, we're talking about having a negative number. That means that there is no solution. And the way that graph will look, that means that your parabola has no x-intercepts. Now, case number 1 is if you had your discriminant greater than 0, there's 2 solutions. Case number 2 is if your discriminant was 0, you have 1 solution. And case number 3 was if you have it less than 0, there's no solution. Let's go ahead and do some examples. First of all, let me tell you, all of these are in standard form and they are equal to 0. We now need to determine and find the a, b, and c value. Well, a is always the coefficient of x squared. There's not a number, so I'm going to put it, it's an understood 1. A equals 1. B is the number next to x, which is negative 8. C is your constant, and c is 16. I'm going to write my formula for discriminant b squared minus 4ac. That will help me determine what my discriminant is and the number of solutions. I like to go ahead and replace my variables with parentheses to avoid careless mistakes. Now, my first set of parentheses is b. Well, b is equal to negative 8. My second set of parentheses is a. A is 1. My last set of parentheses will be c. C is 16. If I was to solve this, negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 16, it is equal to 0. So my discriminant is 0. So if it is 0, there is only one solution. Here's our next example. A is negative 5. B in front of X, there's not a number, so it's understood to be 1. C is my constant, so C will be 1. My discriminant formula is B squared minus 4AC. I replace my variables with parentheses, and then I substitute. My first parentheses is B. B is equal to 1. My second set of parentheses is A. A is negative 5. My last set of parentheses is C, and C is 1. If I solve 1 squared minus 4 times negative 5 times 1, that gives me 21. So the discriminant is 21. It is greater than 0. It's a positive number, so that means that this equation, this quadratic function has 2 solutions. My next example, I am going to identify A. A is 8 in front of X squared. B is in front of X, so that is 8. And C is my constant, so that is 3. Discriminant formula is B squared minus 4AC. Replace my variables with parentheses. And I start substituting. My first parentheses is B, and B is 8. My second set of parentheses is A, and A is equal to 8. My last one is C, and C is equal to 3. So I'm going to solve this. 8 squared minus 4 times 8 times 3. It is equal to negative 32. So my discriminant is negative 32. And it's less than 0. So there's no solutions for this last one. Okay, now you give it a try. You try these 3, where you have x squared plus 7x plus 11 equals 0. And also try x squared plus 3x plus 6 equals 0. And try 2x squared plus 8x plus 8 equals 0.